Travelplex Smart Tips. 10 things you need to know before your trip. Number one, understanding the self-transfer option for your trip. Okay, so if you have or this appears on your particular trip, don't worry, self-transfer does not mean the same as changing airports. So what you need to know about the self-transfer option is that you have more than likely two separate trips. So basically, it's like saying that you took a trip with one airline, we'll just say someone like Spirit, from New Orleans to Newark, New Jersey. And then it's like saying that you booked a completely separate trip from Newark, New Jersey to Israel. So if this is your particular layout, what this means for you is that you want to allot the same amount of time that it would take you if you were originating your trip from Newark to Israel or any international trip that you would take. So what this means is that with international trips, you are typically told to come to the airport at least 3 hours before your flight. This will give you the time to make sure, one, that you're in the right place in the airport, because many airports have a completely separate section for their international travelers. But secondly, it also allots for if there are a lot of people who are making the same journey with you. Something that you should anticipate depending on the season in which you're planning your trip. If there's a major events taking place, you should expect, for instance, like if it's the Super Bowl or if it's the Olympics taking place, you can expect that there are going to be a lot of people flying to a specific destination. The same is the case if you're going to any religious holiday event. So, for Muslims, it would be like a pilgrimage to Mecca, or for those who are Jews or Hebrew believers, then it would be something like going to Israel for the feast. So if this is your particular setup, then you want to plan accordingly. So what this means is that when you get to, let's say, for instance, that your first flight was through Spirit, and let's say you get to Newark and you actually had a baggage to claim. Now, if you are one of those people who know how to travel like a minimalist and you don't require a bag that is checked, then this means that you save a whole lot of time. And in actuality, if you have a layover that's 1 hour or 2 hour, you would not have a major problem in being able to get to your next destination, because from within the airport, even if the international section is clear across from where your gate lets off at, you do not have to worry about going through the whole self-transfer issue. Other than possibly, and this happens probably more frequently if you're talking about overseas, but if you're not having to go through the self-transfer option, if you're talking about coming from one domestic port in the US to another, typically you will not have to go through TSA again to check your carry-on bag. This is usually something you have to do if you were transferring from a country outside of your domestic origin. So it would have less of impact on you. Nevertheless, I would just say if you see that you have a flight or your flight package comes with a self-transfer option, you will want to have at least 2 hours for yourself to check in, even if you do not have a check bag. If you have a check bag, 3 hours is even better, particularly when you're going to countries where English is not the number one language. Because then communication can become an issue with you finding someone who can help you to navigate through the airport. Now, that being said, the self-transfer is not a major issue. Just it's only a couple things you need to know once again, and that is make sure that your layover, see here, the layover here is 4 hours and 30 minutes. So that would be plenty of time for you to get from wherever your gate is in the airport even with navigating through the communication problems that could persist, the main thing you want to do is make sure that you speak with your stewardess, who more than likely will speak English. So you may want to speak to your stewardess, or you want to make sure that the very first thing you look for when you get out, and the two questions you want to ask your stewardess is something along the lines of your flight attendant. You want to ask them, one, where is the baggage claim? And with that question, you want to ask what number. In other words, which number is our carousel. And then secondly, you want to ask to see if there has been a flight change, because typically just before you leave to go on a destination, you are given the gate number. If this does not happen, of course, you want to look for at any time information panel. Most airports are going to have this. I have yet to go anywhere where they did not have some kind of ticker or some kind of electronic device that you can check and see if your flights are on time. This is very important. For that reason, if you have flown with Travelplex, then you received an itinerary that has your schedule for you for every flight that you have on there. And the reason why that becomes important is because it's going to have the flight number listed on there. When you see that flight number, you want to make sure that you keep track of that. In fact, I would suggest that if you're not familiar with it, if you don't have it memorized, 30 minutes at least before you leave, it's a great idea for you to take out your itinerary and to make sure that you have that number, your flight number, in mind. That way, when you go out, you can immediately look for the information, or if you have to speak to someone, such as a flight attendant or anyone who can assist you outside of that area, such as a customer service representative or a ticket desk assistant, then you would be able to give them the flight number immediately so that you can have them to look it up to make sure and to confirm that the gate is accurate. One other thing you can do is, and I would recommend that you do, if you are flying, particularly with multiple carriers, and if that carrier has the option for you to be able to get an app and have this information downloaded to you, this will be very helpful, at least for domestic flights. Unless you have an international phone, this will probably be less effective for you. But my recommendation is some airlines give you an option of getting that information, things like flight changes, flight updates, gate changes. All that information can typically be also sent to you real time to your email. This is helpful when you get overseas, because if you do not have an international phone, then you will not be able to receive text, SMS messages that will be able to alert you of any changes that occur. So in order to avoid that, most airports are going to have accessibility for you to the internet. And with that type of accessibility, you would have the ability to be able to verify the gate number and changes that needs to be done.